Hello, everyone. This is Jacob Popio, the producer of The Apex. This week, we are continuing the book review of The Last Lecture by Randy Paucsch. This review is done by Jan and Jordan McKelley, the host of Run the Globe. If you so choose to join the JJD Thoughts family, please visit www.patreon.com/The Apex Podcast. Please subscribe and hope this pushes you toward your
Time
apex.
doesn't stop. So we shouldn't either.
Agreed. All right, so Lucy, I'm home, chapter 18.
Lucy, I'm home. I really like this chapter. I actually have what I wanted to say on here. We're just going to go straight to this quote, and then I'm going to backtrack from there. Okay? Automobiles are there to get you from point A to point B. They are utilitarian. I can never say that word right. Help me out.
Utilitarian?
Gosh, I can't. Yeah, for some reason I can never say that word. Devices, not expression.
You need a dictionary at the dinner table, son.
Well, I only had a video game controller. Not expression of social status.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
And that's something that Randy's parents had taught him when he was younger. So, Jay, Randy's wife, backs into his convertible. She backs into his convertible. I didn't say a 1992 Honda Accord. I said a convertible. Right. She backs into his convertible. And, she goes and tells him, and they go to check out for to make cosmetic repairs and stuff. And he doesn't let her do any repairs on it at all. And this is something that he told her that I wrote down that I loved. Let me go ahead and find this. Obviously, he says she was happy when she found that he wasn't mad, but she told him that she had to accept him for two parts. And one of those things were that he doesn't care about social status. And so I don't want you to fix my car because it's not important. He says not everything needs to be fixed, which everybody, after people make a mistake, they want to fix that particular mistake immediately. Sometimes I get caught up in that. And he's not worried about it because it just doesn't matter. It goes back to the material items we were talking about earlier. And I just think it's really cool that he understands the grand scheme of life. And if I'm not mistaken, she backs up into his convertible well before he's diagnosed with cancer.
Well before.
So this is an attitude he had, Randy was Randy well before cancer.
Agreed.
Well before. He had this, this sunny disposition, this optimistic, grateful outlook on life well before. And I think this was just an opportunity because you really find out what a person is about, not when everything is going well, but when things are not going well. And that was a situation in a moment in time where things weren't, going over the top awesome in that moment. He could have easily been very, very upset about that. But it was just his attitude. A lot of these chapters I take, almost every chapter in this book, I'm taking away that you need to have a fantastic attitude in the face of adverse, situations that you wouldn't normally be comfortable in. But what do you think about this?
Yeah, just attitude can be super, super important. And he kind of alludes this. The nice thing about this book is that every chapter kind of connects to every other chapter. And if we take this and we apply it back to the pouring the Coke in the backseat of the car, or it's just things are things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That has been a consistent theme throughout his entire life where material objects are material objects. And we focus a whole lot on, I have a MacBook, I have an iPhone, I've got a 2015 car, I have this, I have that. Mm-hmm. But you see people that are super, super famous, super, super rich that are still super, super depressed, right?
All the time.
And it's just understanding that material things are not going to make you happy. And if they get damaged, they get damaged. Oh, okay? Like, the car still drives, and he's basically, Jay doesn't understand why he doesn't want to fix it. She's like, we're really going to drive around in dented cars? He's like, if you're going to accept the fact that I'm not getting mad about this, then you also need to accept the fact that I'm willing to just drive around in the dented car.
Yeah.
It's like you can either have the anger and the fixed car, or the dented car and my understanding attitude.
You articulated that a lot smoother than I did. I appreciate you following up with that.
Yeah, you have to understand that both of those are interconnected.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so just if your wife dents your car, don't freak out. Just drive it.
Yeah, because chances are you probably don't have a convertible, or maybe you do have a convertible, so don't freak out.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, you can always get another convertible. Okay, so the New Year's story. This one I really liked because I'm being the nurse.
Yeah.
Right.
Lead it off.
Very, very medically oriented. So Jay, when they went to go have Dylan, his son, had a lot of complications. I'm not going to get into all of the different complications because he goes pretty in depth about what was going on with like her body and everything like that. And that's something that you guys can read if you look at the book. But basically what sums it up is the doctor looking at him and saying, your wife is going into clinical shock. Okay. And so that freaked him out. But he says that the doctors and the nurses said all the right things. He said, when I looked at the doctor and said, this is bad, isn't it? The doctor's response was, quote, if we were really in a panic, we wouldn't have had you sign all the insurance forms, would we? End quote. Way off base. Doesn't talk about like the actual gravity of the medical situation. But what it does is psychologically distracts the patient. It's like, well, you know what? Like if you were actually in an emergency, like, do you really think we would have taken the time to have you sign paperwork? And so subliminally, it kind of puts you at ease. I mean, you got to flanking that mentality. You're not attacking it from the front. You're just saying, hey, it's all good. Like,
yeah, using psychology to your advantage.
Exactly.
Clearly.
And that was awesome. So he goes pretty in depth about her giving birth. I won't talk about any of that, but he, in the end, basically, I mean, that's a really taxing ordeal on a family, right? Like all of us, like water breaking at the house, going to the emergency room, approaching shock, having to have an emergency C-section, all this crazy stuff happening. And the ending of the chapter, I mean, and that's kind of a theme throughout all the chapters that we've looked at so far. It's just he's really good at about the end of the chapter really summarizing everything that he wanted to get across. We could probably just read the last line of every chapter.
I was just about to say that, yeah.
So this last little section, back to the book, says, through the whole ordeal, I don't think we ever said to each other, this isn't fair. We just kept going, and we recognized that there were things that we could do that might help the outcome in positive ways. And we did them. Without saying it in words, our attitude was let's saddle up and ride. End quote.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Pretty much.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
pretty much covered that for me.
Yeah. Just when crap feels like it's hitting the fan, you gotta, cowboy up.
Yeah.
Take a lesson right out of Chris Ledoux's book. You know,
just embrace
that's
it.
one of his songs. He's like, I did a double backflip and landed on my head. And he was like, next thing I knew, this old rodeo cowboy came out and stood over me and said, you know, you got to cowboy up when you get broke down. You got to right back in the saddle the moment you hit the ground.
Yeah.
And that's just, I love that song because it's, man, you just got bucked off of a horse, did 2 backflips, landed on your neck. And the guy's like, all right, cool, get back on the horse. And yeah, so regardless of what life's throwing at you, just get back up.
Yeah,
get back in the saddle.
Cutthroat way to look at it, but
pretty cut and dry though, I think.
Yeah, no, it is. I agree.
All right, cool. So 50 years, it never came up.
50 years,
Chapter
it
20.
never came up. So I think one of the things to note is that this chapter deals with obviously his father passing away. All right, but the reason we should really take note of this is his father passes away in 2006, and shortly after, I believe it's in 2007, late 2007 is when he passed. Is when Randy passes away, I believe. So within a year, no. It's 2008, July 20. It's in July 2008. Randy passes away, but this chapter talks about his dad passing away in 2006, right?
Right.
And you know the name of this chapter is in 50 years, it never came up. And this is some of the things that I typed out. And so his sister and Randy are looking over some of their dad's old things, right? And there was a citation from 1945 when his father was in the Army for heroic achievement, right? So this is right up your alley. And Randy learns that his father risked his life to save the life of a wounded man, and they gave him medical attention. And
not just a wounded man,
No.
8 casualties.
Yeah,
like
eight
people,
which was a lot.
Got hit by a mortar shell.
Well, I was hoping that you came in and said that, but that was a little.
He ran out. Like, I mean, I'll let you have it here back in a second. But
I was gonna let you say this part. That's why I was saying
April
it like that.
11th, 1945. He ended up getting the Bronze Star, right, which is huge.
That's enormous.
That's a big achievement. So he was in a battle against German forces, and heavy artillery fire, so mortar shells are hitting around them, led to 8 casualties. And to his citation, quote, with complete disregard for his own safety, Private Pausch left a covered position and commenced to treat the wounded men while shells continued to fall in the immediate vicinity. So successfully did this soldier administer medical attention that all of the wounded were evacuated successfully. So he left a covered position while there's bombs blowing up in his area to save. He ended up saving 8 people.
Yeah.
Crazy. That's like why I decided to go into nursing, why I'm like super excited that I'm going to be switching over to nursing on the military side. Maybe even by the time this podcast airs, you know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff that I want to do. Those 8 people's lives are forever changed because their lives didn't end that day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the timeline of the universe was just altered because he was willing to jump out of a bunker while there's rounds flying by and getting shelled to save people.
Not really ideal.
No, not by any means. And the equipment that like medics had in that time frame,
hardly anything.
Yeah, you guys you had like morphine, a tourniquet,
and
some
better
ace
first
wraps.
aid kit in my Jeep out back.
Yeah. So that was great.
I don't have morphine.
Yeah, you can go ahead and take that back over. But that citation, I think, is just phenomenal.
No,
understanding that situation.
Yeah. Well, I liked how he understood that that citation. He learned things from something his dad left behind. Mm-hmm. And this whole book is him hoping that when he leaves us behind, his family, his kids, he's hoping that it has a profound impact on their lives. And it also shows that you can leave something behind. You can leave a legacy behind. And I think that's...
Even if it never comes up in 50 years.
50, think about that. Right. 1945, that's 55 in 2006. That's 61 years. I don't know what I mean? That's all. I don't even know why
time.
I don't even know why the chapter's called that, because it was literally 61 years. But I just think it's incredible. I also think it's incredible that, like I said, conditions weren't ideal, yet he understood what needed to happen.
Right.
And so he went and did it.
Yep.
And in life, we need to understand that, the timing is not always ideal, and that we need to do what's necessary. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was a pretty incredible story.
I agree. And wrap that idea up. In the 50 years, this is back to the book. In the 50 years that my parents were married, in the thousands of conversations that my dad had with me, it had never come up. And so there I was, weeks after his death, getting another lesson from him about the meaning of sacrifice and the power of humility. 50 years of Bronze Star never coming up. That's some humble stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. Chapter 21, he, I think, applies to a really specific group of people. I mean, because he really focuses in on like being terminally ill.
Yeah.
And how to structure relationships around terminal illness. So just one quick quote that I'll pull from that is, a friend of ours suggested that Jay keep a daily journal, and Jay says it helps. She writes in there the things that get on her nerves about me. Randy didn't put his plate in the dishwasher tonight. He just left it there on the table and went to his computer. You know, and that's something that inside of this chapter, he basically says that they had to learn that he's terminally ill and to start letting go of the little things. And so I think it's directed at a really small group of people, but I think it can be applied across, pretty much everybody, where at some point it's the whole choose your battles mentality.
Yeah. Where
it's just, is this really worth my time and energy to try to impart something negative on somebody or to call them out on something or whatever? Like, my roommate, I like having my shower curtain pulled to the right.
Who doesn't?
When I get off, he pulls it to the left and gets out the backside of the tub, and it drives me nuts.
That's hilarious.
When I go in there and I'm like, why? You know what I mean? But I'm just like, okay, I can just grab the shower curtain and pull it over. It's not that big of a deal.
No.
So just let go of the little
pick
things.
Pick your battles.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Chapter 22, we'll just kind of skim over a little bit too, where the chapter title for that is The Truth Can Set You Free. And it's basically, he gets pulled over by a cop. And the cop asks him why he was speeding. And he gets to the point where he talks about having terminal cancer, but the officer thinks he's lying. So he literally lifts up his shirt and shows him surgical scars. And the final line to the book says, the awful truth had set me free. I had never been one of those gorgeous blondes who could bat her eyelashes and get out of a ticket. I drove home under the speed limit, and I was smiling like a beauty queen. You just own it. Own who you are.
Yeah.
Flaws and all.
Yeah.
Whatever you got. You never know what type of situation you'll be in where it might work to your advantage. And not even just working to your advantage, but I think that helping your own personal mental health, if you own your flaws, it does a lot more than if you try to bury them.
It does.
So this next section is called Enabling the Dreams of Others. If I had to pick one section title that really kind of describes my mentality on life in general, it's this one. Just as much as you can, try to help other people achieve their dreams.
That's what life's about.
You know what I mean? Like, we're all humans. We're all struggling. We all got issues. We all got things going on. So why are you trying to beat somebody else down? You know what I mean? Like, if you help, one way that I've heard it compared is that if you get to the top of the mountain and you stepped on everybody's throats on your way to the top of the mountain, then if you fall, there's nobody there to catch you.
Oh, man.
Because they're all dead. You stepped on their tracheas, right?
Yeah.
But if you take a little bit longer to get to the top of the mountain because you keep reaching down and pulling other people up with you, if you start to slip and fall, you have somebody that's there to willing to put their hand up to help push you back up to the top. Because you have a support system. Because you have people that know who you are. They understand your character, what you do, why you do it. And that you being up there or you leading is helping them. So the best way that you can help yourself is by helping other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's all I got on that chapter title.
Yeah. But people walk with you if you're, for number 23?
Oh, no.
Oh, you mean for the section?
Just the section title.
Gotcha. Yeah, for sure. No, I got the same thing. I mean, that's why I coach. It's why I've coached for 9 years now, and that's why I continue to coach. And not just coach, in the world of running, but I mean in the grand scheme of life. That's what our job is to not only travel along this journey, but to see how many people we can get to walk next to us.
Agreed.
And that's the beauty of life. So this is also my favorite. This was actually my favorite section of the book. So
yeah, I can vibe with that. Yeah, I really like this section. All right, so chapter 23. You can go ahead and pull this. I'm just, I guess. I mean, we could just talk about the letters in bold. It's probably the best way to go.
Yeah,
just all those quotes right there.
Yeah, there are a lot of quotes on this one. So this is chapter 23. On my honeymoon. But if you need me. So let me go ahead and flip this. This is where all the quotes are. I didn't actually even need to. Actually, I didn't highlight a lot of this because I've read this book a couple times. But this chapter. But the first thing in bold in this chapter is time must be explicitly managed like money. My students would sometimes roll their eyes at what they called Pauschisms, but I stand by them. Urging students not to invest time on irrelevant details, I'd tell them. It doesn't matter how well you polish the underside of the banister. And I think I probably should go back and say why we're reading what's in bold. So at the beginning of this chapter, he talks about basically overpaying. So he loses, $16.55?
Yep.
Right? Yep. So he went out to get groceries for Jay, right? His wife. Yeah. And during this, I'll just read this part. I figured I'd get out of the store faster if I used the self-scan aisle. I slid my credit card in the machine, followed the directions, and scanned my groceries myself. The machine chirped, beeped, and it said I owed $16.55, but issued no receipt. So I swiped my credit card again and started over. Soon, 2 receipts popped out. The machine had charged me twice. So, and he says at that point, I had a decision to make. I could have tracked down the manager who would have listened to my story, filled out some form, and taken my credit card to the register to remove one of the $16.55 charges. But if you read the rest of the chapter, he doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't.
It basically says that it's not worth my time.
Yeah.
I have a finite amount of time left. It's not worth it.
Time is your biggest commodity.
Yep.
In life.
Yes, it is.
So he says time must be explicitly managed like money. The second thing in bold is you can always change your plan, but only if you have one. Mm-hmm. So I think that's important because I think it's important to start with a plan. Because you really can't go after a goal without a strategy, but also at the same time being flexible because life is very uncertain and you never know what could happen next. So being flexible, but also having a plan. Some people just go in and wing it. You need a plan, but like you said early on when you did your Tower of Excellence speech,
right. At graduation.
You went in there with a blueprint for what you wanted to say, but your passion for what you were saying and your emotion, it changed as as you began to speak. It's kind of like when I got an award from my high school, I went and spoke. I went in there with my tablet with this big speech, didn't read one word from it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's like you said with the goals, the one thing that my buddy Dom, who's actually one of the original 3 that we kind of came up with this idea for JJD, and the Apex and everything else, he always says that he's big into lifting. And he was like, you can have a goal, but until that goal has a plan attached to it, it's going to remain a goal and an unaccomplished dream. Because you have to have a plan to reach your goal. Yeah. Otherwise, it's, okay, you're going to have a goal. I want to have a goal of benching 400 pounds, but I don't have a plan or a workout routine that I'm going to stick to get there. You're not going to get there. It's just plain and simple.
Yeah, I agree. Do you want to go ahead and read the next in bold and black?
Yeah, sure. So the next lesson that he talks about is ask yourself, are you spending your time on the right things? This is huge. This is actually kind of a realization that I had not too long ago where I'd spent a lot of my time focusing on becoming a staff sergeant. And that was something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to be a non-commissioned officer because my grandpa was one, right? And I wanted to be Sergeant Almacy, just like my grandpa. And I got staff sergeant. I was super happy for like 24 hours. And then I was like, what the heck have I been doing for the last 4 years of my life? Because I had sacrificed friendships, relationships, other time, you know what I mean? And I got so tunnel visioned on achieving that I actually got kind of depressed. And I was like, wow, that was really short-lived. I expected it to be more, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he kind of compares it to this where a woman, this is in the book, worried that the sound of jackhammers was injuring her unborn child. But in the photo, the woman is holding a cigarette. If she cared about her unborn child, then the time she spent railing against the jackhammers would have been better spent putting out that cigarette. The only thing that I'll tack on to the end of that, right, is in the college world, in the athletic world, in the relationship world, in the business world, if you spend a quarter, an eighth of the amount of time that you spend complaining about a task or procrastinating a task, actually doing something about it, you will be successful. I pinky promise. The amount of times that I heard, oh my God, we have a test coming up. I don't want to study, so I'm going to go get margaritas, is crazy. You know what I mean? And then you're drunk and you can't study after that and you just missed out on study time. And then you're like, why did I get an 80?
Yeah.
Well, because like
you were studying margaritas.
You were studying margaritas.
Stop studying the bottom of the glass, man.
Right. So it's like, if you just spend less time complaining, spend more time working, you'll be good.
Yeah.
You'll be better for sure.
Then you can enjoy your margaritas.
Exactly. Enjoy your margaritas after you get an A.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or after you hit that PR, after you win that race. You can go enjoy a marg. So
couldn't agree more.
All right. Develop a good filing system. I need to do this because I suck at this. Like,
I'm not good.
Yeah, my room is a hurricane. I know, like, under that blue folder right there. Like, my dad calls it organized chaos because he's the exact same way. I'm just like, if someone else walked into my room, they wouldn't know where crap was. But I'm like, oh yeah, no, that paper I need is underneath that notebook right there, underneath that candle.
Yeah.
So this is something I actually I don't really agree with this as much because I think that for people like him, that works really well. Having everything in an alphabetical order makes sense, but it almost gives me anxiety to have things that organized. You know what I mean? Because then I feel like I'm too entrapped in like this little structure.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, I need to be free. So if you're a type A person, yes, by all means, color code. Have a filing system. Put them in everything in alphabetical order. But if you're like me and that stresses you out, or you're like, I could be putting so much more effort into something else that is going to benefit me way more than taking the time to buy color-coded folders and build a filing cabinet, then do it.
Yeah.
You need to figure out what works for you. It's not going to work for anybody else. And so this method worked for Randy.
Yeah.
But it may not work for you. So this is really one of the only things in the book that I didn't necessarily agree with 100%.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
What works for one person doesn't, life is not every approach is a one shoe fits all.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, no, I agree. There's no reason for me to.
All right. I'll take this next one, and then you can take the last two. So, rethink the telephone. Basically, in this chapter, if you're on the phone or you get put on hold or whatever else, like, learn to put your phone on speakerphone and multitask. You can hear when they finally pick up the phone and the little do 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 hello, and then you can hear that person go hello, like welcome to customer service, instead of hearing the weird elevator music. But don't just stand there and then waste 30 minutes of your life like on hold. Put it on speakerphone and go like today. Done. I was listening to his lecture, but I was cooking breakfast. You know what I mean? You can do that.
Yeah.
So
you can.
That's literally the only thing that I think you can get out of that. So
check this out. I redid some of my taxes while I was on the treadmill, and the woman asked me, "Are you running right now?" And I said, "Yes, I did," because they wouldn't go through. So I literally found like my AGI from the year before because I couldn't find it anywhere. I literally fixed my taxes while I was running. So yes, absolutely. I wasn't going to be put on hold for 40 minutes. It's a very very good point.
Okay.
I know, I'm pretty proud of that. I'm sorry.
That's some epic stuff. That's different.
Delegate. That is the next. That's the next bolded word. Delegate's it's a very important thing because you can't do everything yourself. You only have so many hours in a day, and so I think it's really important to delegate things. Also, you can teach a lot by delegating people tasks. I have some athletes who help me out right now, and I delegate some of them, certain responsibilities, and it's allowed them to grow and learn because there's no better teacher than experience. So,
agreed.
Delegating things is, I couldn't agree with this more. I think it's really important to delegate. I don't know how you think about that, but I think it's pretty important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much about it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And not just delegating, but delegating the right task to the right person that has the right knowledge. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's like typecasting.
Yeah. There's just you gotta and sometimes delegating a task that's harder than what the person can actually achieve, and then watching them struggle a little bit and then giving them information builds their confidence when they actually do achieve it.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to delegate.
Practical experience.
Yeah, you can't carry everything yourself. If I tried to manage everything that I was doing with this right now by myself, like I 100% think that I have my co-founder all the time, because if I had to try to do all this myself, I'd probably go bonkers. So
I know, I understand. I get that.
On that note, if you're going bonkers, go ahead and take a time out.
Yeah, take a time out. This is something I do well, more than I think anybody on planet Earth. There's some nights. The other night I was up till 2 weeks ago I passed out because I was working till almost 6 a.m. And I passed out on a run later that night because that was probably the first time in a long time that I didn't take a time out. I was just going too hard too frequently, and so my body took a time out for me. But typically, I'm pretty good with taking a time out. I think it's really important for everybody, no matter what your profession is, no matter what you do or what you bring to the table in the area you are. Sometimes you need to take a step back, physically, mentally, and emotionally, because all of those areas need to be balanced together. And you can't be running on empty in one area and expect to do whatever you're doing well. If you're emotionally fatigued, it's going to affect your performance, regardless of what you do. So it's really important. He talks about if you go on vacation, are you reading your email or call? Are you calling in for messages? Time off means time off. I always tell my athletes this: recovery days are recovery. And they always ask me, why are we running so slow? This isn't a day where we get in better shape. This is a day where we recover so our body can adapt and so we can get better. And I think it's the same principle where you need to just take a break so that certain energy levels can fill back up. So you can, whatever you have to give of value to the world, you can do it to its fullest ability.
Right. Yep.
So.
Yep. Okay. Chapter 24, The Recovering Jerk. That's me, definitely. I really vibe with this one student because I used to do this all the time, and it was really a huge realization for me once I kind of got punched enough times, not literally, but through life, just understanding that you're not the top percentage of everything all the time. Right. And people that knew me when I was younger will 100% attest to the fact that I was like that.
Yeah.
So here, to the book. For one course I taught, I had students assess each other in the same way by ranking each other in percentiles. But I only let them know the quartile in which they ranked. I remember a conversation that I had with one student whom others found particularly obnoxious. He was smart, but his healthy sense of himself left him clueless about how he was coming off to other people. He saw the data ranking him in the bottom quartile and remained unfazed. He rationalized that if he was ranked in the bottom 25%, he must have been at the 24 or 25% level, rather than, say, in the bottom 5. So in his mind, that meant that he was almost in the next higher quartile, which rationalized as not so far from 50%, which meant that his peers thought that he was just fine. I'm so glad we had this chat, I told him, because I think it's important that I give you some specific information. You are not just in the bottom 25%. Out of 50 students in the class, your peers unanimously ranked you dead last. You are number 50. You have a serious issue. They say you're not listening, you're hard to get along with, and it's not going well. The student looked shocked. I used to be just like you, I said. I was in denial, but I had a professor who showed that he cared about me by smacking the truth into my head. And here's what makes me special. I listened. For the rest of the semester, the student kept himself in check, and he improved. I'd done him a favor, just as Andy Van Dam had done for me years before. That's the whole being willing to take critiques, being open-minded, being stuff like that. Yeah. Here's what made me special. I listened. If someone smacks you with a realization, tries to smack the truth into your head, as he says, if you listen, and because our initial reaction is probably you build up defenses. You're like, I'm not like that. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it's
that victim mentality.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm like that because of my parents. I'm like that because of this. I'm like that because of that. Blah, blah, blah. But when it comes down to it, you are in charge of your emotions regardless. You know what I mean? So if someone critiques you and you get pissed, then you were the one that got mad. I'll take it as far to say that if somebody's doing something that annoys you, they're not the one that's annoying you. You're allowing them to annoy you by annoying yourself almost.
Yeah.
You're focusing on it so much that it's driving you crazy.
Yeah.
When they're oblivious to it. So who's the real loser here?
Yeah. Gosh.
They are. Or, I mean, you are, right? Because you are investing so much time in that annoying thing that that person is doing that they're oblivious to, so they're not putting any energy into it. And you're losing a ton of mental energy because you're like, that guy really irritates me.
Yeah. It's just emotional intelligence.
Yeah. So that's about it. You know, just be willing to listen to those critiques and be willing to be able to critique yourself by detaching and looking at yourself in the third person, being like, is this really worth being agitated about?
Yeah.
So
be your biggest fan. That's how I'll end that. Just be your biggest fan. Understand that love yourself enough to want to grow, which, and if you want to grow, that means you really have to listen to people's opinions about you. That doesn't mean that their opinion is exactly who you are, but it could give you a Snapchat of an area where you can improve. And life is all about growing and improving. So be open-minded.
agreed. If you want to be open-minded, maybe you should start training like a Jedi.
Training like a Jedi, chapter 25. Ooh, we said that at the same time.
Jinx, you owe me Coke.
If I knock on this table, do I still you Coke? Is that knocking on
No,
wood?
but now the guests
Oh,
will
the
hear that in the background.
So, do you mind if I, my 25? Yeah,
That's all you.
Well, thank you,
Yeah.
kind sir. It's a thrill to fulfill your own childhood dreams, but as you get older, you may find that enabling the dreams of others is even more fun.
Preach.
Oh, man. So as he ages, you know, as he begins to achieve some of his childhood dreams, you know, as his teaching career goes on, he understands that helping others, I think he definitely sees himself in some of his students and some of the people around him. And I think that's one thing that leaders that love to help others accomplish their dreams, we see ourselves in those in certain people or see certain characteristics, and and once we see some of those individuals achieve fulfillment, not success. Success is
I like that, definitely. Fulfillment.
Fulfillment, all right? And that's that kind of joy that doesn't come from a trophy or from recognition. It comes from following your passion and having a clear-cut why, and really embracing the process. And when this was my favorite chapter because my mentor growing up, we always used to say Jedi mind tricks because he could get you to do exactly what he wanted you to do, but without you even knowing.
Yeah, you felt like you were the one that wanted to do it.
And I do that with my athletes all the time, Jedi mind tricks, and it's so easy. And so when I first started coaching, so when I ran early on and we won a couple state titles, that was my dream early on. That was always one of my dreams was to win a state title, but in basketball, not in running. In my middle school yearbook, one of my buddies, because I went from a public school to a private school, said, go get that ring. So if I could look at my middle school book. So I achieved that dream, but I got to coach later on, and I got to coach people to accomplish the same thing I achieved. So much more fulfilling. And I would put my hat on that before anything I've done athletically, period. So what I got out of that is I really didn't learn anything from that chapter, but it was just a reminder of why I do what I do. And I think we all need reminders of why we do what we do. I'm sure you have a lot more specific examples. I can see all the blue highlighted stuff that you have on your book. So I'll let you go ahead and I'll stop talking.
Yeah, I mean, really to just reinforce that, one thing that he talks about in here is that it's being good at something isn't good enough, right? And he says this right here. And to the book, he says, I know you're smart, but everyone here is smart. Smart isn't enough. The kind of people I want on my research team are those who will help everyone else feel happy to be here. And that's coming from a boss named Tommy. Randy says that, talking to Tommy, who is this kid that he brought on as an intern. Mm-hmm. And basically said that, you know what, like you're at Carnegie Mellon pursuing your doctorate. Everybody here is smart. What gives you that X factor?
Yeah.
He tries to bring it out of people. And that Jedi mind trick is saying, hey, like, I understand that you're smart. I understand that you're talented, but you still got to work hard, and you got to make people want to be here. You got to make people want to be around you. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, being smart, like, if you're super smart, but nobody wants to listen to you, all that intellect goes to waste.
Absolutely.
Because it's just going to be stuck in your brain. Yeah. And nobody's going to want to hear you say anything, because as soon as you start talking, they just do wah, 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 and they start hearing Charlie Brown's Teacher. Right? Yeah. And that's it. I mean, that's what I pulled
Eric
from that
Thomas
chapter.
Quote, what are you going to do when 1,000 or 1,000,000 other people want the same thing that you want?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, chapter 26, They Just Blew Me Away. He starts this off with something that I 100% vibe with, and I highlighted it and underlined it. It says, I'm an efficiency freak. For sure. Like, I always try to find the most efficient way to get things done.
Yeah.
Mostly because I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off most of the time. And so if I'm not efficient, then I end up creating way more work for myself than I need.
Yeah. Being busy is not enough.
Exactly. You can be really busy and be getting nothing done.
Yeah. No, a lot of people like that, and I've been like that.
Yeah. So in this chapter, he talks about the biggest lesson is he's talking to his mentor, Andy Van Dam, about a class that he had where he invites these students in and gives them a project, and they all come back amazing. And so he's talking to Andy. We'll go to the book. He says, Andy, I just gave my students a 2-week assignment, and they came back and did stuff that if I'd given them an entire semester to complete it, I would have given them all A's. What do I do? And Andy thought for a minute, and he said, okay, here's what you do. You go back into class tomorrow, look them dead in the eyes, and say, guys, that was pretty good, but I know you can do better. His answer left me stupefied, but I followed his advice, and it turned out to be exactly right. He was telling me that I obviously didn't know how high the bar should be set, and I'd only do them a disservice by putting the bar anywhere. I underlined that statement right there. You are doing yourself a disservice, just like I talked about with the principle of nothing. You are doing yourself a disservice if you set a bar.
Period.
Because if you set a bar, you can set a goal, right? Like something to achieve, okay? But that shouldn't be the peak. Shouldn't be your apex.
I see what you did there.
Shameless plug. But that bar should either not be set not be set, but not be there at all, or be movable consistently. Mm-hmm. Because you're always going to reach that bar. So then you just raise the bar and raise the bar and raise the bar. But if you don't have a bar to begin with, you don't even have to worry about unhooking it from the latches and moving it up a couple of inches.
Yeah.
Just keep going. There's that chapter is literally just don't set a bar.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing, you know, understanding what you're actually capable of. It's crazy. Humans are capable of crazy, crazy, crazy things.
Yeah.
Even in the most dire of circumstances. Very first episode, we talked about Viktor Frankl and a man's search for meaning. In concentration camps, what people are capable of. When all of their humanity is stripped away and they're looked at as subhuman.
Man,
still capable of crazy things. Right? Still capable of laughter, capable of humor, capable of love, capable of empathy, sympathy.
Subhuman really puts that in perspective.
And it's like, just don't set a bar, because you never know what you're capable of and how successful you can be in even the worst possible scenarios.
Oh my gosh.
Just as a human being.
Yeah.
We're capable of crazy, crazy things.
We are.
Do you have anything on that chapter, or we can do the Promised Land?
We have a lot of chapters. I think you hit that one pretty solid.
Rock on.
Yeah.
Okay. So 27, the Promised Land.
So, he talks about the Alice project in this. So that was one of the projects he was working on. So he talks about how you can enable someone's dream. You can do it. You can have a coaching consultancy, and you could coach one person one at a time, and you could enable their dream. You could go into a seminar you could go into his last lecture where he had 400 students in the room, and you could enable 400 people's dreams. Or you could on the big scale, you could enable millions of people's dreams. And that's what the Alice Project was about.
Right.
It was about kind of going back to the lesson Coach Graham, the football coach, what he did on the first practice. When he was getting that, he got his students to learn other skills without, like, he got them to understand the intricacies of the grand scheme of things. So they were trying to make movies and a whole bunch of business, but he was teaching them like computer programming within that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, to play football, like earlier, you need to learn like how to play a role without the ball. And so that's what I got out of it. It's just probably definitely a different perspective because I could see your facial expressions. So I'm excited to see what you.
I mean, it's.
I mean, I haven't said anything about Star Wars yet.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not that might be giving away too much information, but I'm actually not a huge Star Wars fan.
Went after listeners. Right.
I mean, I like it, you know what I mean? But I've never, I guess it's not necessarily that I'm not a Star Wars fan. It's just, I don't spend a lot of time watching movies. You know what I mean?
Well, no, you're reading encyclopedias.
Yeah.
You're taking that library card and just mopping it all up.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I was raised in a rural area, so I spent most of my time out in the woods beating my little brother with a stick. Like, that's just, I didn't have a whole lot of movies growing up. My mom was born and raised in like a 50-person village in Slovakia, so like, that wasn't a part of my culture growing up.
Yeah.
But so I didn't actually pay attention to a whole lot of Star Wars stuff in this chapter. But the one thing that I kind of looked at was the fact that Alice, so to the book, to me, Alice is infinitely scalable. It's scalable to the point where I can picture tens of millions of kids using it I don't really think there's a whole lot
No,
in that
not.
chapter. It's a really, really long explanation for just never give up. He says, again, he reiterates at the end of that, brick walls are there for a reason. And once you get over them, even if someone practically had to throw you over it, it can be helpful to tell others how you did it. That's it. That was his advice. If you get over a brick wall, go back and tell people how you got over it so that they can get over the wall.
Yeah, it doesn't do much good to accomplish something if you can't teach somebody to accomplish what you've accomplished.
Exactly. 54, be a communitarian. I'll explain that one a little bit, but there's not a whole lot in that one. It basically just have a sense of community. And it goes with the last one where it's none of the things that you accomplish are any good if you don't tell other people how to get there. Don't be afraid to help other people get to where you're at because it'll make the community a better place.
Yeah.
55, all you have to do is ask. This was actually really cool.
Yeah.
I thought that this was a cool chapter.
He doesn't talk a whole lot about his dad, but in this one he does.
Yeah, he does talk about his dad in this one. He said this is the one time that actually surprised my dad, where they're trying to get onto a ride, right, at Disney, and his dad is like, well, I wish that we were special enough to sit in the front seat. And he's like, oh, well, watch this. I learned a trick. He literally just goes up to the person and is like, hey, can we sit in the front seat? And they're like, sure, come on in, sit in the front seat. And his dad was like, what?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. How did I get you here? I asked. How did I get some of the other interviews that I've had? I just asked people. Like,
It's simple.
People, they put their pants on the exact same way I put my, maybe not the exact same way I put on my pants in the morning, but you know what I mean? Like, most people put them on one leg at a time.
Yeah, for sure. Unless you're special. I do too. But.
Yeah, and that's just how it is.
For sure.
So,
yeah.
Unless you're like trying to like put them up against the wall and jump into them. I'll jump off your bed, Superman into them or something. I feel like that would be cool. That'd be interesting to see somebody attempt that. I feel like that'd be one of those trends that goes viral that I'd be angry at.
Yeah, I'd be angry at it, but I still wouldn't watch people put on their pants. Some things are behind closed doors. I don't need to see that. You know what I mean?
All right, that's fair.
Okay.
That's fair. All right.
56.
56. Make a decision. Tigger or Eeyore? I love Winnie the Pooh, dude.
Oh, then go ahead. 56 lawyers.
This was a good thing because he basically says you have two choices. You can either be Tigger, who's like this super bouncy, really like upbeat, looks at everything positive kind of thing, or you could be Eeyore and you like walk outside and you're like, oh, it's raining. I feel bad about everything. So it's just, that's it. You know what I mean? Like you have two choices. When you wake up in the morning, it's either, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I have so much to get accomplished today. I'm already behind, blah, 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 blah. Or it can be, I've got so much to accomplish today. This is like, I'm glad that I have the opportunity to do this. It's cool that I'm in this position. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to rock it. And just bounce through life.
This whole book.
You need to be Tigger or Eeyore. The whole book is about lenses, just looking at things from different perspectives. Mm-hmm. And
I mean, even the next chapter.
Yeah, the next chapter, a way to understand optimism. Yeah, that's it. He just kind of feeds into the one before.
Being an optimist is seeing the best. A lot of people, really, to me, optimism is just seeing that there is a solution.
Yep.
It's simple as that. People talk about the problems. All I see is the solution to the problem. Yep. And that's what he does in every aspect of this book, like he did in his entire walk in life. And obviously he had moments where he wasn't optimistic, but I think it's optimism, and he talks about gratitude. And all the entrepreneurs I follow and that I listen to their podcast or I watch videos, they talk about those two the most. Right. One of them is Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a business guy. He talks about optimism and gratitude more than
consistently.
Anything.
Yeah.
Consistently.
And the one dichotomy the only thing that he gives the only caveat that he says is you have to find, to the book, Dr. Zeh calls me his poster boy for the healthy balance between optimism and realism. He sees me trying to embrace my cancer as another life experience. Because when you're in that type of dire situation, there is no solution.
No, there's not.
Right. So you have to be real, but you have to be optimistic. Mm-hmm. And how you balance that is, I'm real about what the ending is. I understand what that's going to be, but I'm going to be optimistic about the time I have left. And so I take each day optimized, but with the real expectation and the knowledge that I'm probably going to die within the next year.
So that's a crazy realization to have.
Yeah. So chapter 58 is the input of others. And this one is probably one of the longest chapters in this section.
It basically definitely is.
And he says to the book, "You can survive the unimaginable," Jay wrote. "Your children will be a tremendous source of love and comfort, and you will be the best and will be the best reason to wake up every morning and smile." That's, huge, where it's just sometimes you have situations that are so bad that you can't figure out what the positive light is. And the positive light might be the fact that you have the ability to wake up in an apartment with a roof over your head, or you have the ability to wake up and you have kids around and they're the light and the joy that you can kind of leech off of. Or you wake up and you're not even in an apartment because you got kicked out of your apartment. You're sleeping in your car, but you have a car. You know what I mean? And obviously we can snowball that down and it can get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, right? Like we said earlier, it can always be worse. But the mentality, I think, other than it could always be worse, is just the input of others and their ability to lift you up if you let them is huge. Half the time, we have a lot of friends that are trying to lift us out of crappy scenarios, and we don't even choose to listen.
Sometimes it's tough because when you're allowing someone to help you out of a situation like that, you really have to open yourself up and you have to be vulnerable. And one of the hardest things for anybody, I don't care who you are, how successful you are, or if you're the greatest teacher to ever live, that is always going to be a struggle for every human at some degree. Yep. It is a very hard. I've watched people watch their whole lives go backward because they just couldn't be vulnerable, be open to people's input. So
agreed.
That's well done.
Yep. All right. So the last section that we'll go over, we'll leave kind of the final remarks as a mystery for you guys, as an incentive to get the book and read it.
Yeah, I agree.
But that input, that's kind of the last piece before he goes into his final remarks. And so the way that I'll kind of wrap that up is he talks about life insurance versus emotional insurance in the very last part of that little chapter. And basically the difference between that is life insurance provides monetary stuff, right? But somebody in his life said to him, to the book, "You also need emotional insurance." And then he explained that the premiums of emotional insurance would be paid for with my time, not my money. To that end, he suggested that I need to spend hours making tapes of myself with the kids so that they'll have a record of how we played and laughed. Years from now, they'll be able to see the ease with which we touched each other and interacted. He also gave me his thoughts on specific things I could do for Jay to leave her a record of my love. If you cover the premiums on your emotional insurance now while you're feeling okay, there will be less weighing on you in the months ahead. You will be more at peace. My friends, my loved ones, my minister, total strangers, every single day I receive input from people who wish me well and boost my spirits. I've truly gotten to see examples of the best in humanity, and I'm so grateful for that. I've never felt alone on this ride that I'm taking. That's, yeah. It's an intense ending to that section.
And they should definitely read the final remarks,
even
though we didn't go over it.
Definitely get the book, read the final remarks, read all the other chapters, because we really picked out highlights from a lot of the different chapters.
Yeah.
But if we were going to read this like an audiobook, it wouldn't be a 3-hour podcast. It'd be a 7-hour audiobook. So get out there and get the book. We'll make sure that it's on the JJD Thoughts website under the resources page. And
read the book before you watch before you watch it.
Yeah, in my definitely. Opinion. I would read the book and then watch the lecture because then you get to see what I found is I built Randy up in my head to be this person, how he would act. And then it was like awesome to see what my brain created versus what was actually Randy. Yeah. So, yeah.
I agree.
You got anything?
No, this is one of my favorite books. I just want to thank you for allowing me to come on. And, the fact that it's a very humbling experience to be invited onto somebody else's podcast instead of being the one inviting someone on to yours. because sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit, or sometimes it's fun to share what you love with somebody else. And so one of the things I love to do and what my life's built around is bringing value to people. And so the fact that this is what you love to do for a living and that you invited me on your journey is very humbling. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem.
I needed to go over this book again anyways.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, the stuff in this book is applicable for years and years and years. It's awesome. So thank you for tuning in. This has been the first rendition of our book reviews on the Apex. Our guest host today was Jordan McKelley. You can check out his stuff. We'll make sure that his podcast, Run the Globe, link is posted somewhere easy for you guys to find it, probably in the description of the podcast or maybe in an Instagram post. But definitely check him out as well. And we will be back with another episode coming up here soon. Have a great one.